When I'm manic, it feels like my mind is operating at its fullest possible capacity. It's as if every piece of knowledge I've learned and everything stored in my memory is right at my fingertips, like I'm sitting at the bench of this encircular piano. And sitting there having a thought is like pressing a key that rings out in its own individual note. And that one note calls to another, and to another, and to another as I discover this ability inside myself to play in such a way that incorporates every key within my reach into the greatest and most meaningful song I've ever written. The problem often comes when I try to describe this feeling to another person who can't sit next to me on the piano bench and has to settle for a seat across the table. I try to talk, but my mouth just isn't capable of doing justice to the music I feel and hear within, that I'm playing so fast that only a small fraction of its grand harmony comes across. And too often that song becomes lost and my audience hears only dissonant chords as if I'm banging my hands at random across the keys. The first time I became manic, I didn't realize that something medically significant was happening. At the time, I thought that by some divine turn of fate, every problem in my life had simultaneously receded with this rush of serenity into my head. After all the setbacks, I had finally become the person I'd been working so hard to become. I took that feeling and I ran with it. I was so motivated by the sense of clarity and purpose that I neglected to sleep. But at the time it didn't seem like a problem. As far as I was concerned, this was uncharted territory, and in light of this newfound mindset, I was entertaining the possibility that needing less sleep was also a part of my new life. I just assumed that my body would let me know when it was tired, just as it always had, and in the meantime there was a lot of stuff I had to get done. I made it 9 days. Then I was taken to the hospital. Mania makes me feel like I can solve literally any problem I put my mind to. My focus often turns to really big things like global and political issues, but in my most recent episode of Mania I tried to do something different. If I was the possessor of this incredible willingness and ability to brainstorm, maybe I should try to focus some of it on the biggest problems in my own life, and a psych ward could be a good place for me to take stock and reset. Bipolar disorder is a double-edged sword, and in my case, depression looms in the wake of mania. When I'm manic, everything seems so clear and effortless. When I'm depressed, it's a slog through mud that's up to my waist. Mania gives me this unhindered ability to celebrate my talents and be proud of myself. Depression dismisses those things as either untrue or unimportant, demonstrably, because they're doing nothing to keep the depression at bay. And yes, that might be true. My ability to juggle things does nothing in the moment to help with depression. But I'm coming to realize that my ability to gain all these small talents could be something I can latch myself onto when depressed. I have an inherent ability to learn and to teach myself these tricks, to observe and understand and grow, and that ability can never be taken away from me as long as I draw breath into my lungs and my heart pumps blood to my brain. I'm also good at connecting ideas. When I learn something new, one of the first things I try to do is connect it to as many other pieces of knowledge stored in my mind that I can, like this great big mind web. This also helps in my memory, for the more connections I can make to a new fact I encounter, the greater its chance of settling into a place and sticking. Depression hinders this ability. It's like this hand that continually waves through my mind and sweeps away all of the connective strands, leaving only single bits of isolated information. And as a consequence, my ability to connect ideas and my own mind makes connecting with the outside world that much harder. So recently I had an idea on something to try next time my depression comes back around. I love libraries. They're some of my favorite places in the world because when I walk into one, it feels like a temple devoted to knowledge. The sacred place to go and learn and, in my case, hopefully heal. And in the temple I perform my ritual, walking the rows and reading titles and picking out 2 or 3 that sound interesting to me. I find a comfortable place with my books and a notebook, and I read a little, and I write, and I read a little and write about the things in my head and the things in the book, and sometimes these moments crop up where, in spite of the hand that keeps me from recovering my full web in the grand and glorious way I envision, I can still throw a few more pieces of knowledge into my mind, so that when the waves of depression cease and I can rise again at full height, the web I build has the smallest chance of being stronger and more connected than before. It's hard, but I think it's worth doing. It's the only thing worth doing.